Hi JikookVerse family, welcome back to JikookVerse. Today, we are jumping straight into one of those concert day moments that sounds almost too adorable to be true. The night before a huge concert in Toronto, Jimin decides he needs a little late-night refresh. The city is alive, the night air is cool, and after a long stretch of rehearsals and preparations, a quiet walk outside feels like exactly what he needs. The problem? That little night out turns into a very late night. And by the time morning arrives, Jimin is nowhere near ready to face concert day. Yes, JikookVerse family, Jimin overslept. And the person who ends up waking him is none other than Jungkook. But apparently, Jungkook does not believe in ordinary wake-up calls. Because instead of simply calling Jimin's name, knocking on the door, or telling him that the schedule is already moving, Jungkook decides to wake him with the sweetest little kiss. And that is where this concert day story begins. The setting is Toronto, Canada, with Rogers Stadium preparing for another massive concert day. Outside, the city is already moving. Fans are gathering, staff members are checking schedules, transportation is being coordinated, and the energy around the stadium is building hour by hour. Inside the team environment, however, there is one small problem. Jimin is still asleep. The night before had been unusually relaxing. After spending so much time focused on rehearsals, sound checks, choreography, wardrobe preparations, and everything that comes with a major performance, Jimin had wanted to get out for a little while. Nothing dramatic, just a simple nighttime walk. The kind of walk where you can breathe without someone asking you about the next schedule. Toronto at night gave him exactly that feeling. The streets were glowing under the city lights. Cars moved through the distance, people were still out enjoying the evening, and the cool air made the walk feel refreshing. Jimin had been tired, but somehow the nighttime atmosphere gave him a second wind. And once that happened, going back to sleep suddenly became much harder. He kept walking. He kept talking. He kept enjoying the quiet moments. And before he knew it, the clock had moved much further into the night than he expected. This is the kind of situation that sounds harmless when you are looking at the clock at 1 in the morning. But concert day is different, because when you have a major performance waiting for you the next day, every hour of sleep matters. And Jimin, apparently, was about to learn that lesson the hard way. After finally returning and getting ready for bed, he told himself he would sleep just long enough to recharge. But his body had other plans. The moment his head touched the pillow, the exhaustion from the previous days seemed to catch up with him all at once. And Jimin was out, completely asleep, deep asleep. The kind of sleep where even the morning light coming through the curtains does not immediately convince you to open your eyes. Meanwhile, the morning at Rogers Stadium was already becoming increasingly busy. The concert day machine was officially running. Staff were moving around. Schedules were being checked. Equipment was being prepared. Members and their teams were getting ready, and somewhere away from all of that activity, Jimin was still comfortably asleep. The funniest part is that Jimin probably had every intention of getting up on time. He had a schedule. He knew what time he needed to be ready. He knew there were rehearsals and preparations. He knew that a stadium performance was waiting for him, but none of that mattered while he was sleeping. And then came the moment when someone realized that Jimin was still not up. Enter Jungkook. Now, if you know anything about the dynamic between these two, you already know that Jungkook would probably notice the situation immediately. There is something almost amusing about imagining Jungkook standing outside Jimin's room, looking at the time, then looking at the door. He knows Jimin needs to wake up. He knows the schedule is approaching. And he also knows that Jimin is probably going to be extremely sleepy. So what does he do? The obvious answer would be to knock. But apparently, Jungkook has a much softer plan. He walks in quietly. Jimin is still completely asleep. And for a moment, Jungkook simply looks at him. The person who normally has so much energy, especially around concert time, is now completely still. No choreography, no stage energy, no microphone, no spotlight. Just Jimin sleeping peacefully after staying up far too late. And instead of immediately waking him, Jungkook takes a moment. Perhaps he realizes just how exhausted Jimin must be. Perhaps he thinks that waking him suddenly would be too harsh, or perhaps Jungkook simply sees an opportunity to be sweet, Whatever the reason, the moment becomes incredibly gentle. Jungkook leans closer and gives Jimin the softest little kiss. Not dramatic. Not loud, just a tiny, affectionate wake-up kiss, and that is apparently enough to disturb Jimin's peaceful sleep. Jimin slowly moves. His eyes remain closed. He looks like he is trying desperately to stay inside the dream he was just having. Jungkook waits, then quietly calls his name. Jimin finally opens his eyes, and for several seconds he looks completely confused. He is still trying to understand where he is, what time it is, and why Jungkook is standing so close to him. Then reality starts coming back. Concert day, Toronto, Rogers Stadium. Schedule. And the fact that he had gone to sleep much later than planned. Jimin's expression would be priceless. That sleepy moment when someone realizes they have overslept but is still too tired to fully panic. And Jungkook, instead of making the situation worse, seems almost amused. He probably knows exactly what happened. The late-night walk, the exhaustion, the sleep, and now the morning consequences. Jimin may have wanted just 5 more minutes, but concert schedules do not negotiate. Jungkook gently reminds him that it is time to get up. And this is where the entire morning becomes a mixture of urgency and sweetness. Jimin finally sits up. His hair is messy. His voice is still sleepy, and he is probably trying to process how quickly the peaceful morning disappeared. Jungkook, meanwhile, is already in a completely different mode. He is awake, alert, ready, and clearly entertained by the fact that Jimin is struggling to leave the comfort of his bed. There is something funny about the contrast. Jungkook is basically saying, "Wake up, we have a concert." And Jimin's entire face seems to be saying, "Please let me sleep." But there is no time. The day has already begun, and outside, Toronto is waiting. The funny thing about concert days is that fans usually see the polished version. They see the lights, they see the stage. They see the perfectly coordinated outfits. They see the performances, they see the smiles, they see the confidence. But behind that final performance is a morning filled with ordinary human moments. Someone wakes up late. Someone searches for a missing item. Someone rushes through breakfast. Someone forgets where they put their phone. Someone is still half asleep while getting ready. And in this case, Jimin is that person. The night before had been peaceful. The morning is anything but peaceful. Jungkook probably has to keep reminding Jimin that they are actually running on a schedule. And Jimin, still recovering from his late night, slowly begins moving. First, he gets out of bed. Then he starts getting ready. Then the reality of the concert begins to take over. Once the sleepiness fades, Jimin's professional side returns. Because no matter how tired he is, once it is time to perform, he knows exactly what he is doing. That is one of the most interesting things about performers. They can look completely exhausted one moment and completely transformed the next. And Jimin is no exception. The sleepy version of Jimin from earlier is gradually replaced by the focused performer everyone expects to see on stage. But there is still one person who witnessed the entire transition. Jungkook. He saw Jimin before the styling, before the stage outfit, before the lights, before the cameras. He saw the sleepy, disoriented Jimin who had apparently needed a very gentle wake-up call. And that makes the little kiss at the beginning of the morning feel even more special within this story. It was not about making a dramatic romantic moment. It was simply Jungkook trying to wake someone he cared about. And perhaps that is why the moment feels so cute. There was no audience, no stage, no performance, just a quiet room and 2 people preparing for a very busy day. Eventually, Jimin is fully awake. The sleepiness starts disappearing. And now the two have to focus, because Rogers Stadium is not waiting. As the morning progresses, the atmosphere around the venue becomes more intense. The stadium is getting ready. Fans are arriving. The production team is working. The performance schedule is approaching. And somewhere in the middle of all this activity, Jimin is probably remembering that his late-night walk was both refreshing and a terrible decision for his sleep schedule. It is the classic situation. You tell yourself that you will only stay out for a little while. Then you look at the clock, and suddenly it is much later than expected. But perhaps Jimin needed that night. After days of preparation, sometimes a simple walk can be the thing that clears your mind. The city gave him a chance to relax. He got some fresh air. He enjoyed the atmosphere. He just forgot one small detail. He had a concert the next day. And now he had Jungkook standing beside him, making sure he actually got up. There is also something incredibly funny about imagining Jimin later realizing exactly how close he came to being late. Because when the adrenaline wears off, the question becomes obvious. What if Jungkook had not checked on him? What if Jimin had continued sleeping? What if the wake-up call had been delayed? Suddenly, that cute little morning moment becomes the most important part of the entire day. And perhaps Jimin would never admit it, but having Jungkook there probably made the situation easier. Instead of waking up alone to a stressful phone alarm and immediately panicking, he wakes up to someone familiar, someone who knows him, someone who understands that he is exhausted, someone who can tease him without making him feel worse, and most importantly, someone who can get him moving. As they prepare for the concert, the mood gradually changes. The jokes fade, the sleepy expressions disappear, the professional focus returns. This is concert day. And when the doors open later, thousands of fans will not know about the sleepy morning that happened behind the scenes. They will see Jimin looking confident. They will see Jungkook giving everything on stage. They will see the performances. They will hear the music. They will experience the energy of the stadium. But underneath all of that is a much smaller story. A late night, a missed alarm, a sleepy Jimin, and a very affectionate Jungkook. And honestly, JikookVerse family, that combination is almost impossible not to smile about. Imagine the conversation afterward. Jimin might complain that he was tired because he stayed up too late. Jungkook might remind him that he told him to sleep earlier. Jimin might insist that the nighttime walk was worth it. Jungkook might simply laugh. And somewhere between the teasing and the preparation, the entire situation becomes one of those memories that feels much funnier once the stressful part is over. Because oversleeping before a major concert sounds terrifying in the moment. But once everything works out, it becomes a story everyone can laugh about. Especially when the wake-up call comes with a little affection. And that is the part that makes this morning so memorable. Jungkook did not wake Jimin with panic. He did not shout. He did not make a huge scene. He simply brought a little softness into a hectic morning. And Jimin's sleepy reaction made the whole thing even sweeter. There is also something beautiful about the contrast between the quiet morning and the massive stadium waiting outside. Inside the room, everything is calm. Outside, an entire production is coming alive. Inside, Jimin is trying to convince his brain that morning has actually arrived. Outside, Toronto is getting ready for a major concert. Inside, Jungkook is making sure Jimin is awake. Outside, fans are counting down the hours. And eventually, those two worlds meet. Jimin walks into the day fully prepared. The same person who was barely opening his eyes earlier is now ready to perform. That transformation is almost unbelievable. And perhaps the best part is that the sleepy moment does not make him any less professional. If anything, it makes the story more relatable. Performers are people too. Even someone preparing for a stadium concert can oversleep. Even someone with a carefully planned schedule can stay up too late. Even someone who is usually incredibly disciplined can have a morning when their body simply says number, and sometimes you just need someone to wake you up. For Jimin, that someone happened to be Jungkook. As the concert day continues, the stadium becomes louder. The anticipation builds. The backstage environment becomes more focused. Wardrobe is finalized. Hair and makeup are completed. Equipment is checked. The members prepare, and Jimin is now fully in performance mode. If anyone saw him at that point, they might never guess that just hours earlier he had been sleeping through his alarm. That is the magic of concert day. Everything gets transformed. The sleepy morning becomes a distant memory. The casual clothes disappear. The stage look comes together. And suddenly, the performer emerges. Jungkook goes through the same transformation, but perhaps every once in a while, he looks at Jimin and remembers the sleepy version from earlier. And that private little memory makes the hectic day feel a little lighter. The hours pass quickly. Soon, it is time. The lights begin to change. The crowd becomes louder. The stadium atmosphere reaches another level. And when the performance begins, there is no sign of the late-night exhaustion. Jimin is on stage. Jungkook is on stage. The energy is completely different now. The same Jimin who needed a gentle wake-up is now performing in front of a huge crowd. And perhaps somewhere backstage, someone is silently congratulating themselves for making sure he actually got out of bed. Jungkook might never admit it, but he deserves a little credit. Because without that wake-up call, the morning could have gone very differently. And while the kiss itself is tiny, the meaning behind the gesture is what makes it memorable. It was a quiet moment of affection before an incredibly demanding day. Sometimes those tiny moments are the ones that stay with you. Not the giant stage, not the loudest cheer, not the biggest performance, but the quiet moment before everything begins. A sleepy morning, a familiar face, a gentle wake-up, and a reminder that someone is there. That is what makes this story feel so warm. And now, imagine Jimin later reflecting on the night before. He probably realizes that the walk was worth it, but maybe next time he will check the clock a little more carefully. Because if there is one lesson from this entire situation, it is simple. Nighttime walks are relaxing. Late-night conversations are fun. Toronto at night is beautiful. But concert mornings arrive whether you are ready or not. And when you stay awake all night before a concert, there is always a chance that your alarm will lose the battle. Fortunately for Jimin, Jungkook was there. And fortunately for everyone watching this story, that turned an ordinary oversleeping incident into something incredibly cute. JikookVerse family, there is also a bigger reason moments like this capture so much attention. People love seeing the softer side of performers. On stage, everything is polished. Off stage, the smallest moments can feel much more genuine within the world of a story like this. Jimin being sleepy, Jungkook being playful, the two of them dealing with a hectic schedule. Those little details make the scene feel alive. And the fact that all of this happens on concert day makes it even more entertaining, because the pressure is high. The schedule is tight. The venue is massive. And yet the morning begins with something so simple. Someone overslept. Someone else came to wake him, and a tiny kiss became the most memorable part of the morning. From there, the day becomes a success. Jimin makes it through the preparations. The concert happens. The crowd gets the performance they came for, and the earlier panic becomes nothing more than a funny memory. Perhaps later that night, when everything is finally over, Jimin can laugh about how deeply he slept. Perhaps Jungkook teases him about it. Perhaps Jimin insists that he was simply tired. And perhaps the two of them remember that little morning moment and smile. Because sometimes the best stories are not the perfectly planned ones. They are the unexpected moments that happen between schedules. The moments that were never supposed to become memorable. The moments that begin with something as ordinary as oversleeping. And in this case, the story began with Jimin taking a refreshing nighttime walk through Toronto. He stayed out later than planned. He went to sleep later than he should have. Morning arrived. Jimin did not, and Jungkook stepped in. The rest became one of the sweetest concert day memories imaginable. So, JikookVerse family, if you had been in that room that morning, what would you have done? Would you have laughed when Jimin finally opened his eyes? Would you have immediately told him how late it was? Or would you have been too distracted by the adorable wake-up moment to remember the schedule? Because honestly, Jimin's reaction would probably have been the highlight. That sleepy confusion, the slow realization, the sudden awareness that it is concert day, and then the inevitable rush to get ready. It is such a human moment, and perhaps that is exactly why it works so well as a story. Behind the enormous stadium experience is a very simple morning. One person slept too long. Another person came to wake him. And somehow, there was still time for a little affection before the day became chaotic. By the time Jimin reaches the stadium, the sleepy version of him is gone. He is focused, professional, ready, and when the lights come up, nobody would ever guess how the morning started. That is the difference between what happens behind the scenes and what fans eventually see. The audience sees the final result. They see confidence. They see energy. They see a performer who looks completely prepared. But the road to that moment can include sleepy mornings, rushed schedules, forgotten alarms, and unexpected little moments. And maybe that is what makes this story so charming. Jimin did not start the day perfectly. He started it late, but he finished it on stage. And Jungkook was there at the very beginning to make sure he got there. So if anyone asks what happened before the Toronto concert, there is one image that immediately comes to mind. A sleepy Jimin, still buried in his blankets. A patient Jungkook standing nearby. A gentle kiss. A sleepy pair of eyes finally opening, and then the realization. Concert day has arrived. That single moment changes everything. The peaceful night is over. The refreshing walk is now a memory. The sleep is finished, and the stage is waiting. Jimin gets up. Jungkook stays close. And together, they move into the busiest part of the day. From that point forward, there is no more time for sleep. There are schedules to follow. There are preparations to complete. There is a stadium full of fans waiting. And there is a performance that needs to happen. But underneath all that pressure is the little secret of the morning. Jimin almost slept through it all, and Jungkook was the reason he did not. That is why the wake-up kiss becomes the heart of the entire story, not because it was dramatic, not because it was complicated, but because it happened at the exact moment when Jimin needed a little kindness. And sometimes, that is all a person needs. A gentle reminder, a familiar voice, a little affection, and someone saying, "Wake up, we have somewhere to be." JikookVerse family, this is exactly the kind of moment that makes a busy concert day feel personal. The stadium can hold tens of thousands of people. The stage can be enormous. The lights can be spectacular. But one tiny private moment can still become the emotional center of the story. And this morning had all the ingredients. Late night Toronto, a refreshing walk, a very late bedtime, a sleepy Jimin, a concerned but amused Jungkook, and one unbelievably cute wake-up kiss. By the time the concert begins, everything is back on track. Jimin is ready, Jungkook is ready, the stage is ready, and the audience is ready. The morning panic is forgot, the late night is forgiven, and the two move forward with the rest of their schedule. Perhaps that is the perfect ending to the story. Not a dramatic conclusion, just the simple realization that sometimes the people around us help us get through the busiest days. And sometimes they do it with a little more sweetness than expected. So, JikookVerse family, that is the story of the Toronto concert morning that started with a late-night walk and ended with Jimin being gently pulled out of his sleep by Jungkook. A night meant to be refreshing became a night that lasted much longer than planned. A peaceful morning became a race against the clock, and a simple wake-up call became the cutest moment of the day. Jimin may have wanted a few more minutes of sleep, but Jungkook had other plans. And honestly, the entire situation could not have been more adorable. From the quiet streets of Toronto at night to the enormous atmosphere surrounding Rogers Stadium, the day traveled from peaceful to chaotic in just a few hours. But through it all, the most memorable moment remained incredibly simple. Jimin opened his eyes. Jungkook was there. And the concert day officially began. If there is one thing we can take from this story, it is that even the biggest concert days can begin with the smallest moments. Sometimes, before the lights come on and before the crowd starts screaming, there is just a sleepy person trying to wake up. And sometimes, there is someone beside them making sure they do. That is what makes this moment so sweet. It does not need a giant stage. It does not need thousands of people. It does not need a complicated explanation. It is simply Jimin and Jungkook sharing a quiet moment before a very big day. And then, just like that, it is time to go. Jimin gets ready. The schedule moves forward. The stadium gets louder. The lights come on, and the story of the sleepy morning becomes another unforgettable moment in the JikookVerse. JikookVerse family, thank you for spending this little concert day adventure with us here on JikookVerse. And remember, sometimes the sweetest moments happen before anyone else is awake. Sometimes the person who looks completely exhausted in the morning can become the most energetic person on stage a few hours later. And sometimes, all it takes to make that transformation happen is one very gentle wake-up call from someone who knows exactly how to get you out of bed. For Jimin, that morning started with sleep. For Jungkook, it started with making sure Jimin woke up. And for the fans inside this story, it became a moment impossible to forget. The lights of Toronto were still shining. Rogers Stadium was waiting. The concert was about to begin. And Jimin was finally awake. That is where we will leave our JikookVerse family for today. This has been JikookVerse, bringing you another sweet moment from the world of Jimin and Jungkook. Until the next story, stay close, stay curious, and keep the JikookVerse alive.